Ava Carter never planned for her life to implode on a random Thursday night, but disasters never respect schedules. At 27 years old, she was a junior public relations specialist, navigating the chaotic ecosystem of Seattle's tech industry. She was competent, smart, hardworking, and completely exhausted by the emotional fallout of a 4-year relationship that had ended 3 months earlier when her ex-boyfriend declared she was emotionally unavailable. The breakup had cracked something inside her, leaving behind a persistent ache she tried to drown with routine gym sessions, overpriced lattes, and the occasional glass of wine. It was the kind of wound that healed on the surface while still bleeding underneath. That night, the city outside her apartment window glowed with the usual neon haze. Ava sat curled on her couch, wearing an oversized hoodie, her hair in a messy knot, half a glass of red wine beside her. Her best friend Mia had just FaceTimed her, insisting she needed to lighten up and stop letting her ex live rent-free in her head. In an effort to cheer her up, Mia had dared Ava to write the most ridiculous, naughty text she could think of, just to prove she had not lost her sense of humor. Laughing and slightly tipsy, Ava typed a message that was far too bold for someone in her emotional condition. It was naughty, but also self-deprecating in a way that matched her personality. The kind of joke only a best friend would understand. Without thinking, she hit send. A second later, her stomach dropped. She had not sent the message to Mia. She had sent it to a contact she barely remembered adding. 3 months earlier, e-hail emergency only. The name sat on her screen like a detonator switch. She froze trying to recall when she had ever met someone named Hale. Then she remembered. A traffic accident. A man in an expensive charcoal suit helping an injured cyclist while giving Ava his emergency number in case the police needed a witness. She had saved it and forgotten about it entirely. Until now. Her pulse hammered as she stared at the screen. The message showed delivered. Her face burned with humiliation. She tried to convince herself that maybe he would not see it. Maybe the phone was off. Maybe the number had changed. Maybe the universe would show mercy for once. No such luck. The screen lit up. Seen. Her breath caught. Outside on the quiet residential street, the glow of the street lamps flickered faintly against the misty Seattle air. The neighborhood was peaceful the way it always was after 10 at night. Ava stood up in a panic, pacing circles around her small living room, mumbling that she was doomed and that she could never show her face in public again. Then she heard it, the low synchronized hum of engines, powerful engines. She walked to the window, hesitating before pulling back the curtain, just a fraction. 5 black SUVs turned onto her street, in perfect formation, their headlights carving sharp beams through the darkness. They moved with the precision of a federal convoy and rolled to a stop directly in front of her building. Her heart lurched into her throat. Her first instinct was that the message had been interpreted as some kind of threat or harassment. Maybe the man was a federal agent. Maybe he thought she was a cybercriminal. Maybe she really was about to be arrested for sending a horny joke to the wrong contact. Neighbors peeked through blinds and cracked doors. A dog barked nervously down the block. Ava backed away from the window, her knees trembling. Her phone buzzed again. A text appeared. "Ava Carter, open the door, now." She gasped softly because he knew her name. She had never given her last name that night at the accident. She swallowed, trying to steady her breath. Her mind raced through possibilities, none of which were comforting. Her legs felt weak, but something deeper than fear pulled her toward the front door. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the strange instinct that this moment was bigger than a mistake. Maybe it was the sense that her life was shifting even though she could not see how. She opened the door a crack, and the light from the SUVs washed over her hallway like a cinematic spotlight. Standing on her porch was the man she vaguely remembered. Tall, composed, devastatingly confident. The kind of presence that bent the air around him. His name was Elias Hale, and in that moment he looked nothing like a man inconvenienced by a drunken misfire. He looked like a storm contained in human form. His eyes met hers sharp and unreadable. That single glance told her this night was about to rewrite everything she thought she knew about her life. And though fear pulsed through her, something else flickered quietly behind it. Something that felt terrifyingly like destiny. Ava did not fully realize she was holding her breath until Elias Hale stepped forward, his silhouette framed by the harsh white beams of the SUVs behind him, making him look like he had walked out of a movie rather than a real Seattle neighborhood. When he spoke, his voice was low-controlled and impossibly calm. For a man who had just received a wildly inappropriate text from a complete stranger. "Miss Carter," he said, and hearing her last name spoken with that level of certainty made a tremor run down her spine. "We need to talk." Now that he was standing inches from her door, Ava could see the details she had missed the night of the accident. He had a face that could have been carved from stone. Sharp jaw, dark hair, slightly tousled from the wind eyes so focused, they seemed to read everything she was thinking before she thought it. He carried the kind of presence that made people instinctively straighten their posture and lower their voice. She had seen powerful men in boardrooms and at tech conferences, but she had never seen anyone who radiated authority so effortlessly. She opened her mouth, but the words tangled painfully in her throat. "I am so sorry. I did not mean to. I was not thinking, and I sent it to the wrong contact, and I swear I am not crazy or dangerous or whatever this looks like." Elias lifted one hand, quiet, not unkind, not harsh, but commanding enough to cut through her spiraling panic. He stepped inside without waiting for permission, sweeping the room with a quick assessment that felt unnervingly tactical. Ava pulled her hoodie tighter around herself, feeling underdressed, overwhelmed, and still mortified beyond belief. Elias turned to face her arms crossing over his chest, expression unreadable. "Do you normally send explicit messages to emergency contacts?" Ava felt heat explode across her cheeks. "No, absolutely not. I did not even remember that was your number. I met you at that accident months ago. I never meant for you to see that." He did not smile. His stare was steady, analyzing, almost clinical. "When did you send it?" 10 minutes ago. "And why?" Ava blinked. "Why what? Why did you write something like that at all?" His tone was not judgmental, but investigative, as if he were connecting dots she could not see. "I was joking with my friend," she said, rubbing her forehead. "I had some wine. I was upset about something personal. It was stupid. I know that." His gaze sharpened almost imperceptibly. Upset how? She hated that part of her wanted to answer. But something in him, something in the way he asked without prying, made honesty spill out before she could stop it. "My ex left 3 months ago, and I have been trying to put myself back together. Tonight I felt pathetic, And my friend made me laugh, and the joke got out of hand. I did not mean for anyone else to read it. For a fraction of a second, something flickered across his face, something that looked almost like recognition or sympathy, but it vanished before she could identify it. Elias exhaled slowly, as if grinding down his frustration. You need to understand something. 24 hours ago, HailTech's cybersecurity division intercepted a breach attempt targeting our confidential patents. Very sophisticated, very expensive, and very deliberate. Ava stiffened. What does that have to do with me? Everything he said quietly. Because timing matters. A woman sending an oddly explicit message to a CEO in the middle of a security breach is statistically unlikely to be a coincidence. You think I am part of some hacker operation? Ava put a hand over her chest. I do not even know how to code. I use spreadsheets for a living. I work in PR, not the dark web. I know that now. Elias said, his tone shifting softer but still guarded. When you opened the door, you looked terrified. People staging traps do not look terrified. They look prepared. You looked like someone having a very human meltdown, not a planted operative. Ava swallowed equal parts offended and relieved. So you thought I was a weapon, and now you think I am a mess. He tilted his head, eyes narrowing slightly. Not a mess, just someone who has been hurt. Ava felt that line hit deeper than it should have. Elias stepped farther into her apartment, glancing toward the small living room, as if evaluating whether it was safe. I should not have arrived so aggressively. He admitted, though, he did not sound like a man, accustomed to apologizing. But when something does not add up, I do not ignore it. Accidents do not exist in my world, not anymore. The last words carried weight, heavy and dark, like a bruise beneath his voice. Ava sensed she was standing on the edge of his past, but he was not ready to let anyone look at it. He continued, more controlled this time. 3 years ago, someone I trusted approached me under false pretenses. She was not who she claimed to be. She accessed things she should not have and nearly brought down half my company. It will not happen again. Ava felt something in her chest tighten. So you think every mistake is a trap? Until proven otherwise, yes. But the person standing in front of me right now is not a threat. Just someone who sent the worst text possible to the worst person possible on the worst night imaginable. His words should have embarrassed her all over again, but instead she heard something else. He did believe her. Not fully, not easily, but enough to lower his defenses. He looked around again and shook his head. You should not stand in front of the windows when those SUVs are out there. People jump to conclusions. Come inside and close the curtains. They both froze at the quiet intimacy of that instruction. Ava stepped back, letting him close the door behind them. Elias turned off the overhead light, leaving only the soft lamp on her bookshelf. Without the glare of headlights, he seemed less like a storm and more like a human being carrying far too much weight. He studied her one last time. This was not an accident. Maybe not in the way I feared, but not random either. Your text reached the wrong person, but maybe it happened because something in your life needed to change tonight. The way he said it made a shiver move down her spine. She did not know it yet, but this was the moment everything she had ever known about her life would begin to unravel and rebuild in ways she could never have predicted. Ava woke up the next morning with a sense of unreality clinging to her like fog. She kept replaying the previous night in fragments, the blinding headlights outside her window, the line of SUVs Elias Hale standing in her doorway like a verdict, his voice steady and cold as he declared nothing in his life happened by accident. She had assumed the nightmare would end when he left, but at 7:30 in the morning, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number that could only belong to him. Be downstairs in 10 minutes. Dress warm. Do not bring coffee. We will get some on the way. Elias, that was all. No explanation, no apology, no punctuation, just an order disguised as an instruction. For a moment, she considered ignoring it, burying herself under the blankets and pretending none of this had ever happened. But something told her that refusing him would not actually make her safer. She threw on jeans, a soft sweater, and a coat, her heart pounding as she made her way down the stairs of her apartment building. When she stepped outside, she froze. The same SUVs from the night before were lined along the curb, glossy black and humming quietly. A door opened and one of the men from yesterday nodded to her. "Miss Carter, this way." She barely had time to process before he guided her to the middle SUV, opened the door and revealed Elias seated inside, perfectly still, perfectly composed, as if he had been carved into the leather interior. He glanced up, assessing her in the same precise way he had last night. "Seatbelt. We are running late." Running late for what? Ava slid in, cautiously clutching her bag. Elias did not answer until the SUV pulled into traffic. "I need you at Hale Tech headquarters. There are security matters to clarify." The statement made her eyebrows shoot up. "Clarify? Am I in trouble?" "No, but you are now part of an incident report whether you like it or not." She stared at him. "So I am being interrogated." "Evaluated," he corrected. "I need full certainty before anything moves forward." Anything meaning what? He did not look at her as he spoke again. "The breach, the text, the timing. My team wants details before they close the case. People in my world do not assume coincidence, not ever." Ava sank back against the leather seat. "This is insane. You do realize that, right? I work with press releases and charity campaigns. I am not spy material even by accident." For the first time since she had met him, a faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "No, you are not." The SUV stopped at a private underground entrance with biometric scanners and security, armed enough to intimidate even seasoned executives. Ava felt her stomach twist as they stepped out and into a glass elevator that shot upward through the center of a sleek tower. The floor numbers blinked rapidly until they reached the top. The doors opened to reveal a conference room filled with monitors, analysts, and a tall woman with dark hair tied in a severe ponytail. Elias motioned toward her. "This is Lena Armitage, head of security intelligence. She will walk you through questions. Do not be intimidated." Lena gave a sharp nod, crisp and professional. "Miss Carter, please sit. We reviewed your message, your digital footprint, social accounts. Work records. Nothing indicates malicious intent, so we simply need your own verbal confirmation." Ava blinked hard. "You reviewed what?" Elias cut in. "Your data is intact. No harm. Protocol requires validation." Ava swallowed. "So you basically investigated my life overnight." "Yes," Lena replied simply. Elias leaned against the wall, arms crossed. He watched Ava not like a threat, but like a variable he was trying to understand. Ava answered each question Lena asked. Where she had been that evening, how much she had to drink, why she had saved his number, whether anyone else had access to her phone. whether she had ever been contacted by suspicious accounts. She answered honestly because she did not even have any lies to offer. She was too overwhelmed to fabricate anything. After 30 minutes, Lena closed her tablet and stood. Clear, no flags, no correlation. She is clean. Ava exhaled so sharply, she got lightheaded. Clean. Like she was some sort of crime scene. Elias nodded a silent dismissal, and the room emptied until it was only the two of them. Ava crossed her arms. Do you treat everyone like this, or am I just lucky? His gaze flicked to her different this time, more aware, more human. I treated you like a potential threat because I had to. I am treating you like a person now because you are one. She did not know why, but the shift in his voice made her chest tighten. So what now? Now he said you decide whether you want to be escorted home privately or whether you want to discuss the consequences of last night. Consequences. He pushed off the wall, stepping closer. His presence was overwhelming in the wide room. Ava resisted the urge to step back. Your name is now on an internal security list. The breach investigation is still open, and anyone who sees you associated with me, whether accurately or by rumor, will assume something. Business rivals will weaponize it. Media will spin it. Sponsors will gossip. And you will not be able to walk through this city unnoticed for a while. Her pulse stuttered. I did not ask for this. I did not want this. I know, Elias said quietly. But you walked into my world the moment that text hit my phone. And I walked into yours the moment I showed up on your porch. He paused, acknowledging the truth neither wanted, but both were trapped inside. I do not expect gratitude. I expect solutions. Ava straightened her shoulders. For the first time since last night, she felt her voice return to her. Then talk to me like I deserve one. Do not bark at me. Do not interrogate me. Tell me what I need to know without acting like I am an obstacle. Elias inhaled slowly, as if she had just said something he did not hear often. Respect. He nodded once. Then here is the truth. You are not safe on your own anymore. Not because of anything you did, but because of who saw what you did, and because of who I am. She stared at him. And who are you exactly? He met her gaze level and unflinching. Someone whose enemies do not like loose ends. Someone who does not let civilians get caught in the crossfire. Someone who has to protect the things he is responsible for. Ava felt her pulse thrum. I am not a thing. No, he said softer than she expected. You are not. And that is the problem. Because protecting you will require a decision neither of us can avoid. She held his gaze steady. Then say it plainly. What decision? He studied her with a look she could not decipher, fierce and conflicted. Like a man standing on moral ground that had started to crack under him. If this continues, you cannot remain a stranger on the outside. Not anymore. You will have to stand beside me or be guarded from afar, like a liability. And I do not want you treated like a liability. His honesty landed between them like a spark in dry grass. Ava sensed her life tilting, shifting, being pulled somewhere she did not yet understand. But one thing was already clear. She was no longer just a woman who sent a text. She was stepping into a world where nothing was accidental and nothing stayed small. Ava did not know what she expected Elias to say next, but it definitely was not the words that followed the words that would tilt her life even further off its axis. He walked toward the glass wall overlooking the skyline hands. Tucked in his pockets, shoulders tense, in a way that suggested control, was something he clung to with both fists, not something he was naturally granted. The morning sun reflected against the windows of the skyscrapers below, but he looked carved out of shadow, a man too used to living in a world where everyone wanted something from him, and every wrong move could cost millions. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, but carried the weight of an executive making a decision that would be recorded, analyzed, and judged long after today. There is something you need to understand about my position. In my world, perception is leverage. Reputation is armor. Vulnerability is a weapon others will not hesitate to use. Last night, you became part of that perception, whether you wanted to or not. Ava frowned her confusion, tightening into frustration. I did not ask to be part of anything. I made a mistake, a stupid one. But that does not mean my life should become headline bait. Elias turned toward her, expression unreadable, jaw tight. I know, and believe it or not, I am trying to fix this. Ava crossed her arms, voice sharper than before. By interrogating me, by dragging me here at sunrise, by deciding you own the situation when I am the one living it. His eyes flickered, the first visible sign that she had struck a nerve. You are right, but I do not know how to do this another way. She blinked, surprised by the honesty. Do what? He exhaled slowly, and for the first time since she met him, the impenetrable mask cracked just slightly. Protect someone who is not part of my world. Not a rival, not a shareholder, not a threat, not someone bargaining for access. Just someone who happened to collide with me at the wrong moment. Ava felt the air shift between them. She did not know why, but his vulnerability hit her harder than his authority ever had. So what do you want from me? What is the solution you said we could not avoid? Elias studied her with a gaze that felt surgical in precision and yet strangely gentle around the edges. I want you to step into this with me, temporarily. Ava stared at him. Step into what? He lifted his chin slightly as if bracing himself. A relationship. Her breath left her chest all at once. I am sorry, what? Not a real one, he clarified quickly. A controlled narrative. A public alignment that removes any opportunity for my competitors to weaponize your involvement. If you are publicly connected to me on mutual terms, the story becomes harmless. The scandal loses its bite. The narrative becomes strategic rather than chaotic. She shook her head slowly, shocked. You want me to pretend to be your girlfriend? In simpler terms, yes. She laughed once breathlessly because the alternative was screaming. You have completely lost your mind. Elias did not flinch. If you refuse, your name becomes a dangling thread in an already tense corporate war. You will be hounded, watched, speculated about. People will approach you for stories. Trolls will fabricate details online. My rivals will use you as bait to pull at my weaknesses. You will not escape the spotlight just because you want to. His voice softened. But if you stand beside me willingly, even temporarily, the chaos loses its value. You become untouchable because you are no longer a liability. Ava pressed her fingers to her temples. And how long would this pretend insanity last? 2 months. Her eyes widened. Why exactly 2 months? Because that is the time frame required to stabilize public perception and finalize a deal my company is negotiating. After that, the headlines will shift and you can walk away without repercussions. Ava searched his face. What is in it for you besides damage control? He hesitated, which startled her more than the SUVs ever had. When he finally answered, the truth was quieter than she expected. Peace. A controlled environment. the ability to protect someone without feeling like I am dragging them unwillingly into danger. She swallowed hard, thrown off balance by how unpolished his answer sounded. And what about personal boundaries? Are you planning to parade me around like a trophy? Elias met her gaze instantly. No, I will not touch you. I will not blur your lines. I will not expect anything beyond your presence. You will have complete control over physical boundaries. Ava felt something shift in her chest, something she could not name. Then why me? Why not hire someone? He looked at her like she had asked why gravity exists. Because they would have a motive, you do not. Because they would play a role. You already lived the incident. Because I trust patterns, and everything about last night tells me you are not someone who would ever exploit this. She felt her cheeks warm despite herself. What about my job? Your job stays, your life stays. You will receive additional security, a temporary title upgrade to explain your presence, and the ability to disappear again when this ends. Ava exhaled shakily. You are serious, completely. And what if I make your life harder? What if I am terrible at pretending? Elias stepped closer, his voice lowering. Then I adapt. I am not asking for perfection. I am asking for partnership in something neither of us asked for. She stared at him, heart hammering. You are asking a lot from a woman you met last night. I am offering more in return, he said quietly. You will be safe. You will be protected. And no one, absolutely no one, will be allowed to harm you because of a mistake you made on a lonely night. The vulnerability in his voice made her breath falter. She finally whispered, unsure. And if I say yes? His answer was immediate. Then for 2 months you will stand beside me, publicly, professionally, strategically. And I will make sure every door you walk through is safe. And if I say no? He looked away for the first time. Then I protect you from afar, and you become a target anyway. Ava felt the decision coil in her chest like a storm waiting to break. She knew her life would never go back to normal. Not after the text, not after the SUVs, not after the way he said safe like it was a promise he had never given anyone else. Her voice trembled as she asked, almost whispering, Why do I feel like this changes everything? Elias met her eyes with a truth that struck like lightning. Because it does. Ava had imagined her first official appearance as the fake girlfriend of one of the most powerful CEOs in America would involve at least a week of preparation, maybe a crash course in etiquette, or at minimum time to emotionally process the fact that she had agreed to something that felt halfway between a security protocol and a social experiment. Instead, it happened 48 hours after she reluctantly said yes, inside a penthouse suite filled with stylists, assistant security staff, and a wardrobe rack that easily cost more than a year of her salary. She stood frozen in front of a full-length mirror, while a stylist pinned the waist of the deep cobalt dress that had been chosen for her. The neckline dipped tastefully, the fabric hugged her curves without feeling revealing, and the color made her skin glow under the soft lighting. You look perfect, the stylist said, with the practiced confidence of someone accustomed to dressing women for headlines. Ava tried to smile, but her nerves vibrated like a struck wire. Perfect was not a word she associated with herself. Not after the breakup, not after the text, not after being dragged into a world she did not understand. Her phone buzzed with a message from Mia. If you do not send me pictures right now, I will camp outside Hailtech until I find you. Ava smiled weakly and typed back, I will call you tomorrow. Promise. When she stepped out of the dressing room, the entire penthouse seemed to pause. Elias looked up from where he stood, speaking to Lena near the window. His expression remained controlled, but something in his gaze sharpened, softened, and darkened all at once. He walked toward her with the steady confidence that came naturally to him, the kind that belonged to men who had never needed to raise their voices to be heard. "You look appropriate," he said, which she learned was Elias' code for stunning. She rolled her eyes. "If that is Billionaire speak for you, look nice then fine." A flicker of amusement crossed his face. "You look more than nice. You look like someone who belongs beside me." The words hit harder than she expected, sinking through her nerves and settling somewhere warm. Before she could respond, Lena approached holding 2 small earpieces. "You will both wear these during the event. Standard protocol." Ava nodded, swallowing. She had attended corporate galas before, but always as staff, never as someone people actually looked at. Never as someone headlines would orbit. When they stepped into the private elevator that led to the underground garage, Ava's heart hammered so hard she could feel it in her teeth. Elias turned slightly toward her. "The first 30 minutes will be the worst. Cameras, whispers, speculation. After that, they will become predictable background noise." "Great," she murmured. "Love predictable background noise." He studied her, then held out his hand, palm up. She blinked. "What is that for?" "Optics," he said simply. "The world sees what I show them, and they will see a man who is not hiding you." She hesitated only a second before sliding her hand into his. His grip was firm, yet gentle, not possessive, but grounding, like he was silently telling her to breathe. They entered the gala through a private corridor that opened onto a massive ballroom, glittering with soft lights, glass sculptures, and an ocean of wealthy guests dressed in designer gowns and tailored suits. The moment the doors parted, cameras turned like a synchronized wave. A blast of flashes hit them instantly. Voices rose. "Elias Hale. Elias over here. Who is she? Is this the rumored girlfriend?" Ava stiffened on instinct, but Elias squeezed her hand, once subtle but reassuring. He lowered his head just enough for his words to reach her through the noise. "Look straight ahead. Walk with me. You are safe." She inhaled shakily and did exactly that. Her heels clicked against the marble floor as they stepped into the blinding chaos. Reporters shouted questions, lenses zoomed in, security moved like a protective shield. Elias guided her with calm, deliberate movements, shaping the narrative simply by the way he held her hand and the way his body angled toward hers. Within minutes, her name was trending on social media. Ava Carter, new billionaire love interest. Mystery girlfriend appears at Tech Innovators Gala. PR girl dating Hale. She saw none of it in real time, but she felt it in the air, in the way people stared at her, in the way conversations dimmed and tilted whenever she walked by. Elias leaned closer. "If anyone approaches you, let me handle it. You only have to smile politely." She nodded. A group approached them, led by a striking woman with sleek silver blonde hair, an immaculate white suit, and a smile that did not reach her eyes. Vera Donovan, CEO of Arc Vantage, rival extraordinaire. Vera's gaze swept over Ava in a single cutting glance. "So you are the woman everyone is whispering about. Congratulations. Most people have to work for months to get this much attention." Elias's posture shifted almost imperceptibly, a subtle repositioning that placed himself slightly between them. "Vera," he said coolly, Do not pretend the world is surprised I brought someone. She arched an eyebrow. I am only surprised she is not one of your usual types. His jaw tightened. And what type would that be? Vera smiled. Ambitious, calculated, convenient. She glanced at Ava again this time with a dose of something almost like envy. Before Ava could respond, Elias lifted Ava's hand gently and pulled her closer to his side as if sealing a boundary. Vera, he said, tone dropping a degree, do not assume you know anything about my choices. The air between the two CEOs crackled like static. Vera's smile thinned. Well, enjoy your evening. She glided away, leaving a trail of curiosity and murmurs behind her. Ava's pulse raced. She looked up at Elias. She really hates you? She hates not knowing me, he corrected. And she hates seeing me with someone she cannot categorize. Ava did not know how to respond to that, because something in the way he said someone made the tip of her heart heat strangely. As the night went on, Elias introduced her to founders, investors, partners, and board members. He kept his hand on her lower back just lightly enough to guide her, yet never enough to feel possessive. Every time she faltered, he steadied her. Every time someone stared too long, he stepped closer. Every time whispers swelled, he lowered his head and murmured, "You are doing fine." But the moment that turned the entire night into a shockwave happened when a photographer approached and asked for a picture of the two of them together. Elias did not hesitate. He placed his hand around her waist, pulled her in, and looked at her with an expression soft enough to rewrite every headline. The cameras exploded with flashes. In that moment, the fake relationship looked very real, too real. Her breath caught. His fingers pressed lightly against her waist. The world stared. And for the first time, Ava wondered if the biggest danger was not the enemies circling them. It was the way her heart responded to him. The morning after the gala, Ava woke to a phone that refused to stop vibrating. At first, she thought it was Mia, until she saw the flood of notifications, mentions, tags, headlines, comment threads multiplying by the second. A friend had sent her a screenshot of a trending post that showed a zoomed-in picture of her and Elias on the marble staircase, his hand on her waist, his eyes locked on hers, in a way that looked far too intimate for a fake arrangement. The caption read, "Meet Ava Carter, the PR girl who caught billionaire Elias Hale's attention." Beneath it, the comments were brutal, curious, supportive, disgusting, speculative, and loud enough to drown out her own thoughts. Another screenshot showed a poll asking if she was pregnant, a rumor that came out of nowhere but was spreading fast. A third headline suggested she had dated him secretly for months and was finally stepping into the public spotlight as his chosen partner. She stared at the screen until her vision blurred. She wanted to hide. She wanted to undo the entire night. But there was no undoing anything, not when the world had decided she was relevant. Just when she thought it could not get worse, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Stay away from Hale. You are a distraction. You are not built for this world." Ava's stomach sank. She clicked to the next message. "He will use you. They all do." After that, the messages escalated from insults to veiled threats from anonymous accounts with no profile pictures. A chill crept across her skin. She dialed Elias instantly. He answered on the first ring, his voice clipped and alert. "What happened?" She swallowed. "You should look at your inbox. There are messages, threats." Silence expanded for 3 seconds. Then Elias said, "Pack a bag. I am sending a car." She tried to speak, but he cut in more sharply. Now, Ava. The urgency in his voice made adrenaline surge through her. Within minutes, a Hail-Tech SUV pulled up outside her building. The same man from before walked her to the car without a word. When she arrived at the tower, Elias waited at the private entrance, jaw-clenched eyes darker than she had ever seen them. He took her phone scrolled, and his expression froze into something dangerous. Damien. Ava's pulse stuttered. Damien Cross, the rival CEO at the gala. Elias nodded, returning her phone. This is his style. Anonymous pressure, digital harassment, intimidation, masked as curiosity. He thinks if he rattles you, he rattles me. Ava felt a tremor of fear. Elias's posture tightened. You will not answer any messages. You will not read any forums. You will not engage with anything he spreads. My security team will filter all incoming communication. She frowned. I cannot let you just take over my life like this. It is already being taken over. The difference is whether you let me manage it or let him weaponize it. Before she could respond, Lena approached holding a tablet. We traced several of the accounts sending threats. 4 are linked to Cross's PR subcontractors, 2 to his shell companies, 1 to his private residence router. Ava blinked. You can trace that. Lena shrugged, as if it were as simple as boiling water. He did not bother hiding his tracks. Men like him think they are untouchable. Elias's eyes sharpened. He wants to provoke a reaction, but he will not get one. Ava watched Elias carefully. Underneath his controlled exterior, something dark simmered, something protective, something personal. She had begun as a problem to solve, but now she was clearly something else. Something that hit him at a level he did not want to admit. Later that afternoon, things escalated even further. A video surfaced online showing a blurry clip of Elias and Ava entering the gala. The caption read, "Hale's new lover has arrived," and the comments implied she was the reason Hail-Tech's stock had dipped by 1% overnight. Then a fake screenshot began circulating, suggesting she had been fired from her PR job for misconduct months ago. Another rumor claimed she had dated one of Elias's senior engineers for information. Each lie stung sharper than the last. At 5:30, her boss called, asking if she knew why the office phones had been ringing nonstop. Ava apologized repeatedly, horrified, but her boss surprisingly told her she was not in trouble. If anything, Hale's involvement made her company anxious in the opposite direction. They would never risk upsetting a man whose corporation could buy their firm twice over. After she hung up, she slumped onto the couch in Elias's office, feeling the weight of the entire situation crush her. I never wanted any of this. I am not built for this. Elias lowered his laptop and approached. Ava, look at me. She did slowly, and when she did, she saw something she had not expected. Guilt. I should have predicted this, he said quietly. I should have known Cross would exploit the one thing he believes I cannot control. Her pulse pounded. And what is that? You. The simplicity of the word hit her like a tidal wave. Before she could respond, a phone on his desk buzzed, and Lena's voice filled the room through the speaker. Sir, it is not just digital now. Cross posted insinuations on his private form about Miss Carter. He wants to draw public outrage. Elias's voice sharpened with lethal precision. Shut it down. Report every post. Flag every account. Prepare a legal response. Lena answered immediately. Already in progress. Ava shivered. She did not like being the center of a war she had never signed up for. Elias paced once, then stopped in front of her, his presence steady and grounding. Everything he does is a reaction to losing ground. Last night he saw something he could not predict, and it terrified him. Ava frowned. What did he see? Elias paused. You, standing beside me, without hesitation, with dignity, with strength. Something about the way he said it made her chest tighten. It felt too intimate, too, revealing, too honest. For a man who lived inside walls built of logic and power. The day stretched into early evening, and though Ava wanted to crawl into bed and disappear, the world outside kept spinning faster. She did not realize the magnitude of her involvement until security escorted her out through an underground exit because paparazzi had gathered outside the tower's main doors. When she stepped into the SUV, she saw the flash of cameras bouncing off the dark glass like lightning. She turned to Elias, who had slid into the seat beside her. This is too much. He looked straight ahead, jaw tense. Then let me carry it. For the first time since the chaos began, Ava believed he meant it, really meant it. Not as strategy, not as optics, but as something more human, more dangerous, more real. Ava thought the worst of the chaos had already hit her, but she learned that night that storms rarely end when you expect them to. Sometimes they only gather strength. After a long day at Hailtech, she insisted on returning to her apartment. Elias disagreed instantly, but she pushed back with rare steel in her voice. I need one night in my own bed. I need to feel normal for 5 minutes. He studied her carefully, and though he clearly hated the idea, he finally agreed under one condition. My security team will escort you. They do not leave until you are inside. They will stay nearby. She nodded, exhausted. She wanted silence. She wanted a shower. She wanted to curl into her blankets and pretend the world had not marked her name in neon. The SUV dropped her off just after 9. The street was quiet, washed in the soft amber glow of Seattle's street lights. A drizzle misted the air, turning everything reflective. Ava walked up the steps to her apartment building, while 2 security agents lingered discreetly near the sidewalk. One gave her a nod, the silent confirmation that they would remain until she was safely behind locked doors. When Ava turned her key in the lock, a shiver crawled down her spine. Not fear, not yet. Something more like instinct. She stepped inside, closed the door, and leaned against it, exhaling a deep breath she had been holding since the gala. For the first time all day she felt alone, safe, still. She dropped her bag on the kitchen counter and walked toward the bedroom, tugging off her coat. Then she stopped. A sound, soft, almost nothing, but real. Like the faint scrape of something brushing against the floorboards, just beyond the hallway wall. Ava's heart kicked once hard. She told herself it was the building settling the radiator, the neighbor upstairs. Anything. But when she stepped slowly toward the hallway, she felt the unmistakable prickle of being watched. She froze. "Hello," she whispered, embarrassed at how her voice shook. No answer. She took one more step. That was when she saw it. A shadow under the crack of her bedroom door. Not the shape of furniture, not the flicker of light, the distinct outline of someone's feet, shifting weight. Ava's body turned to ice. Her breath seized. The world tilted. Someone was in her apartment. Before she could move, a loud knock crashed against her front door. Ava jolted and nearly screamed until a voice called her name with sharp authority. "Miss Carter, it is security. Do not open the door. Step back now." Her knees almost gave out in relief. She backed away from the hallway, But before she reached the living room, another noise came from inside the bedroom. A soft exhale, human, close. Ava's heart slammed against her ribs, and instinct overrode reason. She ran. She unlocked the door with shaking hands as two security agents pushed inside, instantly sweeping the apartment with practiced precision. One motioned her back. "Stay behind the line." Ava pressed herself against the wall, near the kitchen, while the agents moved down the hallway. The first door opened, clear. They reached her bedroom. The door was slightly ajar. The agent counted silently with his fingers, then pushed it open. Ava held her breath. The closet was open. The window was unlatched. Rain mist blew inside. Footprints on the carpet. The agent spoke into his earpiece. Intrusion confirmed. Perimeter breach. Suspect fled through the fire escape. Ava covered her mouth, shaking violently. Someone had been standing in her bedroom while she was in the living room. Someone close enough to hear her breathing. The security agent approached her, voice calm but firm. "Miss Carter, we are moving you out immediately. This location is no longer safe." She nodded numbly, her body trembling too hard to speak. Her apartment, the one place she thought she could find a sliver of normalcy, was now contaminated with fear. One agent retrieved her bag. Another stayed at her side as they led her outside where the dark SUVs waited like silent sentinels. The moment she stepped into the back seat, she saw a flash of movement at the end of the street. A figure ducking behind a parked car. A faint click of a camera. Then silence. The SUV doors closed and locked. Ava curled into herself, adrenaline shaking every muscle. The agent in the passenger seat radioed the tower. "We are en route with Miss Carter. Possible contact at the scene. Advise Hale." The reply was immediate. "He is already on his way." They drove through the city, intense silence. Ava stared out the window, trying to steady her breathing, but her mind replayed the shadow under the door again and again. By the time the SUV pulled into Hale Tech's underground parking garage, Elias was already standing there, coat still on eyes, fierce and burning, with something she had never seen in him before. He opened her door before the security team could and crouched slightly so they were face to face. "Ava, talk to me. Are you hurt?" She shook her head, but her voice broke. "He was in my apartment. Someone was in my room." Elias inhaled slow and lethal. His jaw clenched until the muscle twitched. He stood and addressed the security team. Full sweep of the building, access logs, cameras. "I want identity in 2 hours." Then he turned back to Ava, offering his hand. Not commanding, offering. She took it without hesitation, needing something solid, something that did not break apart under pressure. He led her to the private elevator, his hand steady around hers. When the doors closed behind them, she finally exhaled a shaky sob. Elias stepped closer, his voice low, gentle, in a way she had never heard before. "I am here. You are safe now." She looked up at him, tears streaking her cheeks. "This happened because of me, because of that stupid text." His eyes softened with a depth she had never expected from a man who ruled boardrooms and dominated markets. "No, this happened because someone wanted leverage. And they will not get it. Not through you, not ever." When they reached the penthouse, Elias guided her inside himself, dismissing his staff with a single nod. Once they were alone, he handed her a blanket, placed her phone on the counter, and knelt in front of her like grounding a storm. "Ava, listen to me. Someone crossed a line tonight. A line even my enemies know not to cross." She wiped her face. "So what happens now?" He held her gaze, voice steady and fierce. "Now you stay where I can protect you, where no one can get close, where no one touches what is mine to safeguard." The last words lingered in the air between them, charged unintentional but completely honest, and Ava realized with a tremor that this was no longer just strategy. She was no longer just a shield or a narrative. Something had shifted, something dangerous, something real. The safe house was nothing like Ava expected. When she imagined a billionaire's emergency hideaway, she pictured steel walls, harsh lighting, an underground bunker, carved from paranoia and reinforced concrete. Instead, the elevator opened into a warm modern cabin, suspended on a hillside, every window revealing the glittering sprawl of Seattle at night. Soft amber lights glowed from sconces along the walls. A fireplace crackled beneath a mantle of dark stone. The furniture was simple and minimal, yet luxurious, the kind of aesthetic that felt curated for silence, not for guests. Elias stepped inside, first sweeping a quick glance around the space, with the instinctive caution of someone who never assumed safety, even in places he owned. When he finally turned back to Ava, some of the sharpness in his expression eased. His voice lowered. "Sit. You need to breathe." She obeyed because every part of her body felt drained. She sank onto the soft leather sofa, wrapping the blanket around herself. Her hands trembled, not from cold, but from the lingering shock of knowing a stranger had been inches from her, while she stood unaware a few feet away. Elias sat beside her close, but not touching his posture, tense jaw-locked eyes, staring at the fire as if trying to burn the memory of her fear out of existence. When he finally spoke, the words were rough. "I should never have let you go back there alone." Ava shook her head. "It is not your fault. I insisted. I thought I could handle it. I just wanted one piece of my life to feel normal." "Normal is not an option anymore," he said quietly, rubbing a hand over his jaw as if ashamed of the truth. "Not while you are connected to me." She hugged her knees, pulling the blanket tighter. "Elias, what if he had still been in there when I walked into the bedroom?" His breath caught. The sound was barely audible, but Ava felt it. Felt the quake under the surface. Something inside him cracked a fracture in the iron facade he lived behind. He looked at her not like a CEO trying to control a situation, but like a man terrified of what could have happened. That thought has been replaying in my mind since the moment I got the call. He admitted the words, trembling with emotion he never exposed in public. Ava stared at him, stunned by the honesty. She had assumed Elias Hale lived in a world where fear did not touch him, where danger was something to neutralize, not something that could shake him. But here he was, shoulders tight, voice low, eyes burning with a quiet panic. Her own fear softened into something she was not ready to name. She whispered, "I am here, I am okay." He shut his eyes for a second, as if her words reached a part of him no one spoke to. When he opened them again, the vulnerability remained. "Ava, you do not know what it did to me when I heard someone was inside your home. I do not let anyone close to me. It is easier, safer, predictable. But you walked past every barrier I have without even realizing it. And now you are a target because of me." She felt the energy shift, slow and electric, something fragile and dangerous forming in the quiet. Elias leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor like the truth hurt him. "I do not like losing control, not in business, not in life, not ever. But when I saw you standing there in the garage, shaking, terrified, something inside my chest went cold. That has not happened since the betrayal 3 years ago. Ava swallowed her voice, barely a whisper. The woman who used you, who tried to steal from you. He nodded. I swore no one would ever get close enough again to matter. He lifted his head, eyes locking onto hers with raw intensity. But you matter. You mattered the moment you sent that message. You mattered when you stood beside me at the gala like you belonged there. You mattered when you tried to go home alone because you wanted to protect your pride. And you mattered tonight when I realized I could have lost you before I ever understood what this is between us. Ava's heart thudded painfully. She had not expected this. Not tonight, not ever. Her voice trembled. Elias, this is supposed to be fake, temporary, strategic. I know, he said softly. But nothing that happened tonight felt fake to me. The fire crackled in the silence. The rain tapped gently against the windows. The city lights shimmered below like millions of tiny stories unfolding. And in that suspended, fragile moment, something shifted between them, undeniable and alive. The power dynamic softened. The distance shrank. The fear melted into something warmer, deeper. Elias reached out slowly, giving her time to stop him. When she did not, his hand brushed her cheek, feather-light, cautious, reverent. She exhaled shakily at the touch. His voice was barely a breath. Tell me to stop, and I will. She did not. Her eyes fluttered shut as his thumb traced a soft line beneath her eye. For the first time, his touch was not for optics or strategy or control. It was human, tender, honest. He leaned in slowly, as if he feared startling her, as if she were something fragile he had never been trusted to hold. When his forehead touched hers, she inhaled sharply. Elias whispered, I would never take more than you give. Tonight you are safe. You lead. You decide. The vulnerability in his words shattered the last of her fear. She lifted her hand and touched his jaw, feeling the tension there, the unspoken fear, the longing he tried to hide. He let out a shaky breath and leaned into her touch. When their lips met, the kiss was not urgent or wild. It was slow, soft, trembling. A confession neither had been brave enough to speak. A promise neither had prepared for. When they finally pulled apart, Ava rested her head against his shoulder chest, rising and falling with unsteady breaths. Elias wrapped a blanket around her himself, his movements gentle. You will sleep here tonight, he murmured, and tomorrow, and until this ends. Her eyes softened. You mean until I am safe? His gaze held hers with a depth that made her breath catch. No, Ava, until you are ready to leave. A silence settled over them, warm and fragile, the kind that changes everything. Ava knew then that something irreversible had taken root in that safe house. Not danger, not fear, not duty, love, or the beginning of it. For 2 days the safe house felt like a pocket of stolen time, suspended above the chaos of the outside world. Elias kept meetings, remote security, doubled patrols around the perimeter, and Ava stayed wrapped in the quiet warmth of a place that felt safer than her own apartment ever had. She and Elias did not talk about the kiss, but the air around them shifted in ways that needed no explanation. He moved closer without thinking. His voice softened when he spoke to her, and sometimes she found him watching her with a look that made her pulse trip. But safety is never permanent, not in a world that feeds on scandal and weakness. On the third morning, Ava woke to the sharp chime of an alert from the tablet Lena had provided her. At first, she assumed it was just another minor rumor, another cluster of strangers debating her worth. But when the screen lit up, her breath stopped. At the top of the trending feed was her face. Not from the gala, not from a paparazzi shot, from her private camera roll. A photo of her lying on her couch in sweatpants weeks earlier, taken from an angle that suggested someone had snapped it through her living room window. The caption read, "Hale's girl caught preparing her trap." Beneath it was a thread of commentary accusing her of staging everything manipulating Elias, sending the Sext deliberately to force him into her life. Another post claimed she had a history of seducing wealthy men for financial gain. Another showed a blurred image of a woman who vaguely resembled her entering a nightclub 2 years earlier with a headline that read, "PR girl has secret past as escort." The lies multiplied by the second. Ava's knees buckled as she sat on the edge of the bed. No, 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 no. She scrolled further, her chest tightening with every word. Then she saw the worst headline of all. Exclusive leaked Sext proves PR girl. Targeted Hale Tech CEO in calculated move. Attached to it was a distorted screenshot of her message, edited to look explicit, manipulative, rehearsed. She felt sick, dizzy, violated. Someone had broken into her digital life, taken her private moments, twisted them, weaponized them. Her hands shook so badly, she almost dropped the tablet. The bedroom door opened and Elias rushed in, his expression hardening instantly when he saw her face. "Ava, what happened?" She handed him the tablet with trembling fingers. He looked at the screen, his jaw set like stone. A muscle in his temple ticked. He scrolled once, then twice. Then his eyes went cold, dangerous, murderous. "Damien," he said through clenched teeth. She tried to breathe, but her voice broke. "Elias, they think I did this on purpose. They think I targeted you. They think I am some kind of con artist." He placed the tablet aside, kneeling in front of her. "Ava, look at me." His hands cradled her face, firm but gentle. "You did nothing wrong. Everything here is falsified. Everything. Do you understand me?" But her tears spilled over anyway. "People will believe it. My job, they will think I used my position. My friends, my family. They will see this and think I actually did this." Elias pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly against his chest. She could feel the tension in him, coiled and ready to tear the world apart. "I will shut this down," he said against her hair. "I will not let them destroy you. You are innocent. You are mine to protect." The last sentence slipped out before he could stop it, but Ava did not have the strength to process it. She could barely breathe. The room felt smaller, tighter. She pulled back, wiping her face with shaking hands. "Elias, you cannot protect me from millions of people online. You cannot protect me from my own image." He stood running a hand through his hair. His voice dropped into that dangerous register that rattled boardrooms. "I can protect you from the man who caused this, and I will." But Ava was already sinking under the weight of the headlines. Her entire identity had been rewritten without her consent. Worse, Elias had become her shield, and that shield was now being tested in the most public way possible. Later that afternoon, Lena called with an emergency update. The board of Hale Tech was demanding an internal review, not of Elias, of Ava. They wanted to know whether she had intentionally compromised the CEO, whether her presence jeopardized company operations, whether she posed a liability, whether the Sext was a coerced move. Elias slammed his fist onto the conference table so hard, the room shook. The board members flinched. "That is enough," he said in a voice cold enough to frost glass. She is not a threat. She is not a risk. She is not a manipulator. She is a victim of a coordinated attack from a man who has been after my company for years. One board member cleared his throat nervously. Still, the optics are concerning. The headlines, the photo leaks, the rumors. We have shareholders to think of. Elias stepped forward, eyes burning. If any of you so much as imply she is responsible again, you will not leave this room with your job. But Ava, watching from just outside the meeting room, heard enough to know that she had become the center of a corporate crisis. She felt sick. Elias was fighting a war because of her. A war that jeopardized his reputation, his company, his stability. She could not do this to him. She could not be the reason he fell. As the board filed out, she approached him, voice soft and breaking. "Elias, we need to talk." He turned to her immediately, still charged with fury and protectiveness. "Are you all right?" She shook her head. "No, and I cannot stay." His eyes widened. "Ava, no. Listen to me. This is not your fault. I will fix this. I told you I would." She swallowed hard. "And I am telling you that I am the problem. Not the rumors, not the headlines. Me. I am the thing they will use to tear you apart, to weaken you, to undermine everything you built." Elias took a step closer, voice low and shaking with emotion. "Do not do this. Do not walk away because of fear." She backed up a step, tears spilling. "I am walking away because I care about you. And because I cannot watch the world burn you down because of me." For a moment, a storm raged behind his eyes. Hurt, fury, desperation. But then something inside him shuddered. The wall rebuilt itself brick by brick. His voice turned soft, almost fragile. "If you walk away, you break more than the narrative. You break me." Her heart cracked. But she held her ground. "I am sorry." With one final look at him, she stepped into the elevator and pressed the button. The doors closed. The last thing she saw was Elias standing there, breath-shattered eyes hollow, watching her leave, as if the world were collapsing all over again. Elias had survived boardroom coups, hostile takeovers, corporate espionage, and a betrayal that nearly destroyed his company 3 years earlier, but nothing prepared him for the silence Ava left behind. The safe house, once warm and charged with fragile possibility, felt hollow the moment the elevator doors closed on her retreating figure. For a long moment he stood frozen, unable to process the reality that she had walked away not because she stopped caring, but because she cared too much. The weight of that truth crushed something vital inside him. When he finally moved, it was slow, mechanical, like someone learning how to walk again. He pressed both hands against the elevator doors as if he could force them back open through sheer will. He whispered her name once, not loudly, not desperately, but with the quiet devastation of someone who realized too late that the thing he needed most was slipping beyond reach. The next hours blurred into motion without meaning. Lena tried to brief him on updates about Cross, about the investigation, about the legal fallout, but her voice faded into the background. Elias moved through the Hailtech Tower like a ghost in a perfectly tailored suit. His assistant knocked twice before entering his office, asking about a meeting he was supposed to lead in 5 minutes. He answered without looking up from the screen he had not actually been reading. "Cancel it. Reschedule everything today." His assistant hesitated. "Sir, the European investors flew in specifically to discuss the merger." Elias lifted his eyes slowly, and the look he gave her was so cold, so hollow she flinched. "I said cancel it." She left immediately. As soon as the door shut, Elias sank into his chair and stared at the skyline beyond the window. Seattle glimmered with its usual mix of rain and neon, but tonight the city felt hostile, distant, unfamiliar. Ava had been the only softness in weeks of escalating chaos, the only calm in the noise, and now she was gone, not because of anything she did, but because his world had swallowed hers whole. He replayed every detail of the last 3 days. Her trembling voice when she told him someone was in her apartment. Her laugh in the safe house kitchen when he accidentally burned a piece of toast because he was too distracted by her. The way she whispered his name in the darkness. The way she kissed him like she could feel the cracks in him and still chose to lean in. He remembered the way she looked at him at the gala, unsure, nervous, but trusting him anyway. Trusting him. And he had let her walk out of his life in the moment she needed him most. A sharp knock shattered his spiral of thoughts. Lena entered without waiting for permission, her face tense in a way he rarely saw. The board wants an emergency hearing, she said. They are pushing to remove Ava from all proximity to the company and want you to issue a statement distancing yourself from her entirely. Elias's expression hardened. No, Lena stepped closer. Sir, they are scared. Cross is using the chaos to undermine company stability. Investors are anxious. Stock is fluctuating. The board claims your involvement with Ava is compromising your judgment. Elias laughed once, humorless and sharp. My judgment is compromised by their cowardice, not by her. Lena hesitated before asking quietly, Are you sure this is not personal? He turned his gaze on her, and for the first time in years, she saw something raw beneath his armor. Everything about this is personal. She studied him carefully. You are shutting everything out. You are not listening. You are not delegating. You have skipped 3 calls. If Ava were here, she would tell you this is not the way to protect her. He froze. The truth in her words struck him like a physical blow. Ava would tell him to fight smart, not blindly. She would tell him to breathe. She would place her hand on his chest the way she did in the safe house and whisper, Elias, stop trying to carry the world by yourself. He swallowed hard against the ache in his chest. Lena added, you need to address the situation publicly, not for the board, for her. Because if you do nothing, the world will decide the narrative without you, and she will pay for it. The thought made something inside him snap back into place. He stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. Prepare a press conference. Lena blinked. For when? Now. Get the legal team, comms, PR, all of them, and find the strongest evidence we have that Cross orchestrated this. Lena nodded and turned to leave but paused. Sir, you know going public means exposing more of your private life than you ever have. Elias looked out at the city again, lightning flashing low in the distance. Then let them see. Let them hear it from me. If they want a narrative, I will give them the truth. When everyone left the office, Elias finally allowed himself one moment of vulnerability. Only one. He ran both hands through his hair, the exhaustion settling into his shoulders like lead. Then he opened the drawer of his desk. Inside was the earpiece Ava had worn at the gala. The one she had joked made her feel like she was in a spy movie. She had left it behind. He closed his eyes and breathed in, slowly letting the sharp ache of missing her carve through him. Before she walked away, she told him she cared. She left because she cared, and now he would fight for her. Not because of strategy, not because of optics, because he loved her. The realization hit him with terrifying clarity, but it felt inevitable in hindsight. Of course he loved her. Of course she had broken through the walls no one else had. Of course she was the one thing he could not lose without losing himself. He placed the earpiece on the desk, straightened his jacket, and stepped out of the office with a steady, unshakable resolve. If the world wanted to turn against them, he would turn the world back. He would step in front of every headline, every rumor, every lie. And when he spoke on that stage, he would rewrite the narrative in front of the entire country. For her, for the truth, for the love he finally understood, too late to hide. The press conference was announced only 30 minutes before it began. Yet by the time Elias stepped onto the stage inside Hailtech's largest auditorium, the room was overflowing with reporters' cameras and live broadcast feeds streaming to millions across the country. Storm clouds rolled over the Seattle skyline, lightning flashing behind the glass panels, as if nature itself understood that something seismic was about to unfold. For years, Elias Hale had been a phantom to the public, a brilliant mind who rarely showed his face, never granted interviews, and kept his private life sealed behind titanium boundaries. Tonight, every camera lens zoomed in, sensing blood scandal or the rarest creature in the corporate jungle vulnerability. Lena stood backstage, her expression unreadable but resolute, as Elias adjusted the microphone. His pulse was steady, not because he was calm, but because he had never been more certain of anything in his life. He scanned the sea of faces, the crowds whispering, speculating, hungry for his downfall. He could almost hear Cross laughing from a distance. Elias placed both hands on the podium, leaned forward slightly, and spoke with a voice that cut through the room like a blade. "Thank you for coming on such short notice." The whispers quieted instantly. "Tonight I am addressing misinformation, digital manipulation, character defamation, and a targeted attack on both myself and a private citizen who never asked to be dragged into this conflict. Her name is Ava Carter." The room erupted with clicks and murmurs. Elias continued unshaken. 3 nights ago, a forged narrative was released by individuals thus associated with my corporate rival, designed to suggest that Miss Carter intentionally sent an inappropriate message to manipulate me. That is false. The text message was an accident, unplanned, unintended. But even if it had been intentional, the idea that a woman's worth can be destroyed by a single message is an old and poisonous notion I refuse to entertain. Reporters exchanged stunned glances. No CEO spoke like this, not in this tone, not with this conviction. As of this morning, Elias said our cybersecurity team has traced multiple smear campaigns, leaked photographs, and falsified screenshots directly to Damian Cross and his subsidiaries. We have issued legal action, we have provided evidence to the Federal Investigation Unit, and we will pursue every avenue available to ensure accountability. Gasps rippled across the auditorium. Cross had enemies, but none were bold enough to confront him publicly. Until now. Elias's gaze darkened, each word laced with quiet fury. Miss Carter is not a seductress. She is not manipulative. She is not a liability. She is a hard-working PR professional whose privacy was violated in ways no citizen should ever experience. She was followed. Her home was broken into. She was threatened. And every manufactured rumor about her was designed to provoke a reaction from me. The cameras zoomed closer, capturing the storm inside his eyes. And here is the part that every headline seems to forget. A mistake does not define a woman. Her integrity does. The room went silent. Even the camera operators froze. Elias allowed the weight of the sentence to settle. He could see the impact ripple through the crowd like electricity. No one expected him to defend Ava with such clarity, such fire, such raw emotion. A reporter in the front row raised her hand. "Mr. Hale, are you saying you have a personal relationship with Miss Carter?" The question seemed to echo more loudly than it should have. Elias inhaled, choosing his words with deliberate care. "Yes, I am. We have grown close, and the world's obsession with tearing her reputation apart is not only cruel but baseless." Another reporter shouted, "Is it true she is living with you?" Elias held the reporter's gaze unflinchingly. "She is staying where she feels safe. And until this ends, I will make sure that safety is never compromised again." A third reporter, sensing vulnerability, pushed harder. "Why risk your company over someone you've known for less than a month?" It was the kind of question designed to corner men like him, but Elias didn't flinch. Because the length of time you know someone is irrelevant when the connection is real. A murmur spread through the audience like a ripple of shock. He continued, voice steady. "I built Hailtech from nothing. I fought through betrayal, corruption, and sabotage. And in all these years, not once have I stepped in front of a camera to defend myself. But I will stand in front of the world to defend her. Because she did nothing to deserve what has happened. Because she was targeted to hurt me, and because her courage has shown me what integrity truly looks like." That was the moment the world changed. For Ava, for Elias, for the narrative Cross had tried to control. A reporter called out, "Mr. Hale, are you in love with her?" Elias paused just long enough for the air in the room to tighten. His voice, when he answered, was quiet, simple, and devastatingly honest. "I do not answer to rumors, but I will say this. She is the first person who ever made me want to be better than my past." The room went silent. Not a whisper, not a sound. Even the cameras stilled, like they were afraid to break the moment. Elias took a final breath. "Any further questions regarding Miss Carter will be addressed legally, not publicly. And to those who participated in weaponizing her name, her voice, her privacy, this ends now." With that, he stepped back from the podium, shoulders squared, expression carved from steel and fire. Reporters erupted, shouting questions, scrambling for angles, rushing to broadcast his every word. But Elias did not look back. When he reached backstage, Lena exhaled. "That was a declaration," she said. Elias corrected softly. It was the truth. His phone buzzed in his hand. A message from a contact he had stared at for hours since she left. "Ava." 3 words glowed on the screen. "I saw everything." His pulse stilled, then accelerated, and below it another message. "Where are you?" Rain hammered against the pavement in heavy silver sheets as Elias stepped out of the SUV and told his driver to leave. No security detail and no shadow team, no convoy. Just him, soaked instantly as the storm swallowed the quiet, residential street where Ava had been staying since she left him. His charcoal suit clung to his body, drenched in seconds' hair, dripping over his forehead as he walked toward her building with a determination that bordered on reckless. He barely heard the thunder. His mind played only one thing on repeat. "I saw everything. Where are you?" He climbed the front steps, 2 at a time, each footfall echoing like a heartbeat. He had been holding back for weeks. When he reached her door, he stopped, breath visible, in the cold, rain-soaked air, pulse pounding, with a mixture of hope and fear. He knocked once, twice. Then the door opened. Ava stood there barefoot, in sweatpants and an oversized shirt, wide-eyed as warmth spilled from behind her into the storm. Her hair was slightly damp, like she had been pacing the room, opening the blinds, watching the street in anticipation. For a moment she simply stared at him, taking in his soaked clothes and the raw emotion carved across his features. Elias. You should not be out here like this. He exhaled her name like a prayer. Ava. Then he took a step forward, rainwater cascading off him, and she instinctively stepped back to avoid his wet clothes touching her. But he did not enter. He stayed in the doorway, water dripping onto the hardwood floor, chest rising and falling with unsteady breaths. I came as soon as I saw your message. I left the conference and got in the car without thinking. I needed to be here, with you. His voice cracked on the last word, and she felt it like a physical pull. Elias, you are soaked. Come inside, please. No, not yet. His hand gently pressed against the door frame as if holding himself up, more than blocking her. I need to say something first. Ava swallowed hard, her pulse fluttering like wings against her ribs. She had watched his live broadcast from the couch, clutching a pillow as tears streamed down her face. She had never seen anyone defend her like that, never seen anyone stand up for her without hesitation or fear. She had left because she thought she was ruining his life, dragging him into a scandal manufactured to destroy them both. But he had not bowed, he had not hidden. He had fought for her in front of the entire country. And now he was here dripping rain onto her floor, shaking from a truth he could no longer contain. Elias lifted his hand and pressed it flat to the center of his chest. Do you hear that? Ava frowned. Hear what? He stepped closer, bridging the tiny gap between the storm and her warm living room, lowering his forehead until it nearly touched hers. This. He moved her small hand until it rested over his heart, the soaked fabric of his shirt cold and trembling beneath her palm. It beats louder when you walk away. It has been beating like this ever since you left. The confession hit her like lightning, bright and overwhelming. Elias kept speaking, voice low and trembling in the storm. You were never a weakness. Damien said you were. My board said you were. Even I believed it for a moment when the world turned on us. But they were all wrong. You were the first thing in my life that made me want to be better, more honest, more human. The rain fell harder, pounding against the awning above them, a steady roar like the world, urging him to continue. I was afraid of needing you, afraid of wanting something I did not know how to protect. And when you walked away, I convinced myself it was for the best, but watching you suffer alone was the worst thing I have ever done. His voice cracked again, and Ava felt her own tears rise. Elias, she whispered his name like she was afraid any louder sound would break him. He lifted his hand to her cheek, thumbs brushing away raindrops and tears he could not distinguish. I love you. The words felt both fierce and fragile, spoken like a truth he had carried for months, but only now dared to give shape to. I love you, Ava Carter. Not because of what you did or did not do, not because of the mistakes, the chaos, or the noise, but because when everything around me collapsed, you were the one thing that made sense. You were the calm inside all the storms I created. And I cannot lose you again. Ava's breath hitched as lightning flashed, illuminating his soaked expression in stark white light. She had imagined this moment in countless versions. None had looked like this, raw, unpolished. A billionaire CEO trembling in the rain, outside her door like a man with nothing left to hide. She stepped closer until her forehead touched his, her voice barely audible over the storm. I left because I thought staying would destroy your career. I thought Damien would use me to break you. I thought I was protecting you. A broken laugh escaped Elias. You do not protect me by leaving me. You protect me by being the one person who does not lie to me, who does not use me, who does not fear me. His hands cupped her face as if she were something precious and fragile that he had finally learned how to hold. Ava's tears blended with the rain. I love you too, Elias. She whispered it with no hesitation left in her body. I was terrified of it, terrified of losing myself, terrified you would shut down again like you did after the last betrayal. But watching you stand up there tonight defending me, you did not choose fear, you chose truth. And I cannot walk away from that. Elias closed his eyes in relief, his breaths trembling as he leaned in and kissed her. The kiss was not perfect or gentle. It was wet and messy and desperate and real, like two people who had been holding their breath for weeks, finally exhaled into each other. The storm blurred around them as he lifted her off the ground, slightly her arms wrapping around his soaked neck. When they finally broke apart, she pressed her forehead to his and whispered, "Come inside before you freeze." Elias smiled a small, unguarded smile she had only seen once before. "Only if I stay. Only if you let me stay this time." Ava nodded, pulling him through the doorway and closing the rain out behind them. "Stay," she whispered. "Stay with me, always." His soaked hand intertwined with hers, and for the first time since the wrong text that shattered her night, their world finally felt whole. 1 year later, the world outside our penthouse windows glowed in a wash of blues and golds. As Seattle shimmered beneath us, the city lights reflecting. Off the glass like constellations anchored to earth, I stood barefoot on the balcony wrapped in one of Elias's shirts as I looked out at the skyline that had witnessed the strangest and most transformative year of my life. A year ago, I had been a PR employee, surviving on iced coffee and low confidence, carrying wounds from a breakup that convinced me I was too much work for anyone to stay. Then one wrong message, one humiliating, accidental text detonated everything I knew. Tonight, as the wind brushed my hair and the faint hum of the city drifted upward, I heard the quiet click of the balcony door. Elias stepped out behind me, his presence as familiar and grounding as the rhythm of my own breath. He wrapped his arms around my waist, warm and strong, pressing a soft kiss to the side of my neck. "I thought I might find you out here," he murmured. "You always come out to the balcony when you are thinking." I smiled, leaning into his embrace. "And you always find me." He rested his chin on my shoulder as we both took in the glittering city below. His life had always been a fortress of secrecy, control, and locked doors. A year together had not erased the shadows of his world, but it had softened them, woven them into something human, something we could navigate together. Inside, soft jazz played through the penthouse, echoing lightly against the marble floors. It was the soundtrack of a quiet Thursday evening, a far cry from the chaos we once stood in. Hailtech had recovered. Damien Cross was under federal investigation, and I had moved from being the accidental woman in a fabricated scandal to becoming the director of communications, a role that challenged me but also healed me piece by piece. Leading a team, shaping narratives, not hiding from paparazzi, but speaking with them when necessary. Learning that my voice mattered, learning that I mattered. Elias once said that integrity defines a woman. I had spent the last year trying to believe that it defined me. It had not been an easy road. There were nights when I woke up sweating from nightmares that reporters had camped outside our door again, or that someone had broken into our building. There were moments when Elias froze during arguments, slipping into the silent shutdowns he learned after years of betrayal. But we learned how to meet in the middle, how to hold each other instead of running, how to talk without fear of breaking the fragile thing growing between us. Love was not a thunderclap. It was slow, intentional, built through tiny gestures that stitched our lives together. Like the way he always warmed my mug before pouring coffee, or the way I left handwritten notes in his suit pockets, reminding him to breathe before board meetings, or the way he whispered good night in Italian because he said it sounded like a promise in that language. As the city lights flickered, Elias tightened his hold around me. "Do you realize what today is?" I frowned. "Thursday." He chuckled softly. "Yes, but it is also exactly 1 year since I sent my shadow team to track down your location after you refused to answer my calls. You mean the night I was eating ramen and crying because the internet hated me. That night, he kissed my cheek. I never told you this, but I sat in that SUV for 10 minutes before knocking on your door because I did not know what version of me you would get. You always think you are too much." He tilted my face toward him. "But what you do not see is how much you have changed me. I used to believe needing someone made me weak. Now I know it makes me alive." My heart fluttered in that familiar, steady way. It always did now when he let himself be soft. A year ago, he had only spoken in strategy and caution. Now his words carried warmth that filled every empty corner inside me. The wind shifted, bringing the faint echo of sirens somewhere in the distance. I turned in his arms. "You have not told me why you have security stationed outside the building tonight." He hesitated, just long enough for me to feel suspicion rise. "Ava," he began. "Elias Hale, do not. You dare. What is going on?" His eyes softened the way they did when he was trying very hard to hide a smile. "Come inside. There is something I want to show you." He took my hand and led me back into the penthouse. The lights were dimmed. The room felt warmer, almost expectant. I noticed the blinds had been drawn on the floor-to-ceiling windows, and he walked toward the control panel beside the kitchen island. "Are you ready?" he asked. "For what?" I whispered. He pressed a single button. The blinds rose simultaneously, revealing the entire street below. And there, lined up in a perfect formation, like an echo from another lifetime, were 5 black SUVs. Their headlights turned on at the same moment, beams slicing through the night in a glowing pathway across the asphalt. The same SUVs that once terrified me, the ones that symbolized a world I did not understand. Tonight they formed a runway of light, a memory turned into something beautiful, something intentional, something ours. I gasped, my hand flying to my mouth. Elias stepped behind me, his hands sliding around my waist, his chin resting lightly on my shoulder. "The night everything changed," he whispered. "I wanted to rewrite that moment, to turn fear into something worthy of the woman you have become." Before I could fully absorb what I was seeing, he turned me gently toward him. The music faded, the world stilled. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. My breath hitched. Elias. His eyes were steady and warm in a way that melted every remaining shard of fear inside me. Ava Carter. He began softly. A year ago you stumbled into my life because of a mistake. But everything since then has been the most intentional truth I have ever known. You taught me how to feel, how to trust, how to love without calculating the risks. He opened the box, revealing a ring that caught the reflection of the SUV lights and the city skyline in perfect harmony. I want to spend every day protecting your heart the way you protected mine. Will you marry me? The ring glowed against the backdrop of the city, its light mirroring the warmth building in my chest. Tears blurred my vision. I had entered his world by accident, dragged into darkness I never asked for, but he had carried me out of it with a tenderness I never knew men like him could possess. I took a shaky breath, unable to stop smiling. Yes, his exhale was a quiet, relieved laugh, as he slipped the ring onto my finger, his thumb brushing my trembling hand. He drew me into him, kissing me slowly, as the SUVs dimmed their lights, letting the soft glow of Seattle wash over us. When we finally broke apart, he whispered against my lips. It started with a wrong text, but loving you has been the truest thing I have ever done. And with the city as our witness and the past finally behind us, we began the first night of the rest of our chosen life. If you made it all the way to the end of this story, thank you for being here tonight. Your time means more to me than you know, and I truly hope this journey with Ava and Elias gave you something to feel, something to believe in, or even just a moment of escape from the world. Before you go, I want to ask you a few things that help this channel so much more than people realize. First, if you enjoyed this story, please take 1 second to give this video a like. It seems small, but it actually tells YouTube to show this story to more people who love romance just as much as you do. And if this is your first time here, or maybe you have been watching for a while but never hit that button, I would be so grateful if you subscribed to the channel. We post new romance stories every week. Stories filled with twists, characters you can fall in love with, and moments that stay with you long after the video ends. Your subscribe truly keeps this channel alive, and it helps us create even better stories for you. Now I want to hear from you personally, because your comments always make my entire day. Tell me what you would have done in Ava's place. Be honest. If you accidentally sent a naughty text to a billionaire CEO and suddenly 5 black SUVs pulled up outside your house, what would your reaction be? Would you panic and hide behind the curtains? Would you call your best friend and scream? Would you open the door, or would you run out the back? There are no wrong answers, and I love reading every single comment. And of course, tell me your favorite moment from this story. Was it the night Ava stood up for herself in the Hale Tech boardroom? Was it the safe house scene when everything finally cracked open between them? Was it the talk show moment when Elias defended her with the entire country watching? Or was it the rainy confession at her doorstep, the moment he finally said the words he had been too afraid to admit? Your feedback helps shape the next videos, truly. If there is a type of romance you want to see next, leave it below. Billionaire love stories, forbidden office romance, cowboy redemption arcs, mafia romance with a twist, second chance love, dark academia, accidental marriage tropes, forced proximity, enemies to lovers, anything at all. This channel is built by you and for you, so your ideas matter. And if you have a favorite line from this story, drop it in the comments too. I love pinning your favorite moments. It helps new viewers know exactly why this channel means so much to people like you. Also, if you want to help this channel grow, share this video with a friend who loves romance or someone who needs a little emotional escape tonight. Sometimes the right story finds the right person at the perfect moment, and you might be the one who helps it get there. Thank you again for spending this time with me, truly. Your support lets me keep telling stories filled with love, heartbreak, hope, and everything in between. Until next time, stay safe, stay kind, and never stop believing that one unexpected moment can change your entire life. Because as we saw with Ava and Elias, sometimes the biggest miracles begin with the smallest mistakes. See you in the next story.